Welcome to day 3 of processing. Today's where it starts to get really cool. So far we have drawn a lot of shapes, we've drawn circles, squares, we've seen how to change the colors, and then we just started with just finished up last time I should say, with setting up those procedures, that void setup and that void draw. And today's where you're really going to see why setting up those procedures is important and how it can make this really cool. So I'm going to suggest you start by opening up, if you created a template, go ahead and open up that template. Remember, mine are saved in my documents, a processing folder, and there's my template. If you're opening this file and you click on it and it doesn't know what program to open it with, you can set that to always open with the right program. So I'm going to walk you through that step a second. If you double click on it and it doesn't know what program to open with, there should be an option to browse for the program that you want to open with. Or you can do what I'm doing right now, which is right clicking on it, going to open with, and then choose a default program. If you got that window that said you can browse for it, you're jumping ahead to this step that I'm at right now. And you can click on browse here and go ahead and find wherever you saved processing. So I actually saved mine in documents as well, processing 1.5.1, and then I double click on that program. Make sure this box is checked and it will always use that program to open this kind of file, and click OK, and now you're opening it with processing. And from now on you can just go in and double click on template. And notice, yep, I've got my template, and in my template I've got that setup. We're going to set my size to 400 by 600 and make my background white, and I'm going to turn smoothing on, and now I've got this draw. And so my first step then, I'm going to save this as, I'm going to call this, today I'm going to call it animations, because we're starting to get into some pretty cool stuff. I'm going to save that, and now I've created a new folder called animations with this code in there. So if you've got the handouts, it's on page 4. You might want to have that in front of you. If you don't have it, well, here it is. And again, all of these commands, you can find some descriptions for them under the help for the reference tools there, if you want to find that. But today our the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add random into it, random code. So let's first start by, we need a we need a circle or something. So I'm going to draw an ellipse at we'll go halfway, put the center at the halfway point there, so 200, 300, and I'm going to make it 200 wide by 200 tall. So now I've got an ellipse, and normally I would assign a fill color to that beforehand. So maybe I want maybe I want a red fill color. So 255.00. So this is just stuff we've done before, and like I said, when we hit play, we should have a red circle in the middle of our sketch. I actually want to make my stroke weight a little bigger, so that I think it looks a little bit nicer. Okay, so nothing terribly exciting at this point. We've got a red circle. And like I said yesterday, when we were talking about the procedures, it's actually, processing is doing this draw procedure over and over again, and you're going to see it in just a second here. So that first special command there is this random command, and what it does is it returns a random number between two numbers. So I could put random 0 to 255, for example. So I can do, instead of having just red, I'm going to put a random amount of red light in there, from 0 to 255. Gotta make sure I get all my parentheses in there right, otherwise I'll get an error message. And so now it's going to return a random amount of red between 0 and 255. Let's see what that looks like. And notice it's redrawing this over and over and over again. And you might not even see this. I don't know if my if my screen capture is able to capture this as well as you're probably seeing on your screen, but it's rapidly changing the amount of red in there and keeps redrawing my screen. One thing I could have done, instead of doing from 0 to 255, I could just put random 255 and it's understood that it's 0 to 255, and that will give me the exact same thing that I just had. But I could also change my random amounts for some of my other colors, so I could make this random 0 to 255, and random amounts of green and random amounts, gotta spell it right, random amounts of blue from 0 to 255. So now when I play it, we're going to get a whole bunch of different colors, and it keeps redrawing it. Like I said, it's doing this draw loop over and over and over again. I'm going to jump ahead from transparency, and I'm actually going to go down to frame rate, because I think it'll look a lot better and you'll see it a lot better if we change our frame rate. Frame rate says how fast is it going to redraw this screen. Right, the default is it's going to try to do it 60 times per second, which is ridiculously fast. Top quality digital video is at about 30 frames per second. Actually, often it's at 29.97 frames per second. So we can change that frame rate and reduce that to something a little more realistic. And we might even do that up in our... I'm going to do it up in my setup command here, and I'm going to reduce it to 10 frames per second. So it's still fairly fast, but you'll be able to see it changing a little bit better. And notice again, frame rate, because it's two words, we capitalize that second one and we give it that capital R. And now you can see it randomly assigning different colors and redrawing it over and over again, but at a slightly more normal speed. At least a speed where you can actually see it happening a little better. There are also, there's also this transparency. So anytime you're giving a fill color, you can actually give it a fourth command. This one is optional. You know, normally we did fill, and then we gave it the amount of red, the amount of green, and the amount of blue that we wanted in there. But we can also add this fourth one, which is its transparency level. By default, it's going to be totally opaque. In other words, it's going to have 255 for the transparent number. So these numbers, again, go from 0 to 255. But we could give it a different one. So I'm going to change my fill back to, I'm going to delete that out of there and change it back to red. But instead of having it totally opaque, let's give it a transparency of a pretty small one of just 10. So now what it should be doing is it's going to draw over and over and over again, and it's going to draw a red circle in our center, and it's going to do it very, very transparent, but it's going to draw it over top of each other time and time again. So it should slowly get redder and redder and redder and redder. And as you can see, the red kind of builds up. You can imagine kind of like a thin red circle, like think of almost like wax paper or something that was red, and if you slowly put more and more on top of it, it gets darker and darker and darker red. And that's essentially what is happening here. We started with a very, very transparent, and it slowly got slowly filled in over top of that. So that's another pretty important thing to keep in mind, is that whenever you're putting in a color, you can also put that fourth argument, which is for how transparent or how opaque you want it to be. Next, I want to talk about some other built-in variables. There are some useful ones. One would be width and height. Width, just as soon as you give the command of what size your canvas is going to be, it automatically stores 400 as its width and 600 as its height. So instead of say wanting to put my ellipse at the center, I could just do width divided by 2 and my height divided by 2. And so it's going to automatically put my ellipse now, its x is going to be whatever that width was divided by 2, and the height divided by 2. So it's just going to find that center spot for me. So, all right, let's do that. And now we've got it automatically in the center where I wanted it. If I had done just width and height, it would put the center at the x, which is 400, and the height is 600. And it's fairly useful. I don't have to remember what my size was. I can just use width and height. And so now my circle is going to be down in this bottom right corner here. Those are fairly easy, fairly nice variables to have, especially when you want to put something in the center. It's just a simpler way to quickly draw that. So now you've added a few built-in variables that can be fairly useful. We've added this transparent, and we've added this random function, which gives us some cool interaction. Then we can actually see it. We can actually see now this redrawing and redrawing and redrawing, and how processing is going through this loop over and over again. And we've changed the frame rate to do it at a slightly more useful speed, so it's not doing it at such a hyperactive speed. We're going to stop there, and we'll pick up on the next video on page 6. And believe me, it gets even cooler on that page, so you don't want to miss that.